Welcome to the Undercovers podcast. I'm your host, Ben, along with Tommy, Paul, and Jenna. And tonight we have Greg Tompsett of Cover One on to preview training camp. So, Greg, thank you so much for coming on. Football it's finally back, baby. I couldn't be more excited. How are you feeling?
Good. It's awesome. First, thank you for guys having me on. I appreciate you guys giving me the invite, and it is really exciting to be able to finally get back to football. I enjoy a lot of the offseason. A lot of my expertise is in the roster construction and the nerdy contract stuff, but I still love the games. I love watching the games and watching football, and I get to watch guys run around with helmets on here in 3 days. It's fantastic.
Yeah, speaking of which, training camp kicking off Wednesday, and we kind of got some big news prior to training camp today. I know we were, going to talk about roster construction and everything, but I think, the Naheem Hines situation is kind of maybe not a huge deal, but it's definitely a big topic. It's the biggest news we've had in some months, as far as the Bills. So, he's a player who carries. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you are the cap guru here. So, I believe it was a $2 million cap hit.
So it was a little bit more. He's had kind of a odd contract since he arrived because we absorbed the deal that Indianapolis had already signed him to, which was honestly a pretty hefty contract. It was like 3 years, 18 million. So then we brought him on. We owed him very little for last year. He restructured his deal to stay. So it was a bit of a pay cut. It knocked it down to like $1 million signing bonus and 2.56 million. And he could earn another 340,000 in bonuses spread out each of the 18 game week checks. So, 340,000 and 2.56 is a nice even 3 million. So they basically took, hey, you were going to make 5 million. We're going to knock it down to 4, and we're going to make a chunk of it incentive based, that however many games you played is how you make it. So it dropped it down to like a $3.5 million cap hit from 5 million and let him earn a little bit of it back. So the couple things that go into the injury, obviously, it's very sad. Like it's not. Well, I'll save the thoughts on the field part for after. We'll just talk about the contract for now. When you get injured off the field, every NFL player has contracted in their language that for non-football injuries, especially with risky things like skydiving or jet skiing or water skiing or snow skiing, a lot of skiing, any of the things where you could get hurt, four-wheeling, snowmobiling, that are considered risky activities, and it happens off the field, it can void all of your guarantees. So he did have $2 million of his salary guaranteed. That's now voided. It's no longer guaranteed. So in a cold world, they could just say, hey, man, this stinks, but tough luck. We're going to release you, and we don't owe you any more money. I will reference, and this was a good one. I want to give a shout out to a guy. I work very hard to know about the salary cap, but I also know the right people to ask. One of the guys I work with does my same idea for the Texans. He goes by @TexansCap on Twitter. He's a great follow. He brought up a good example with David Quessenberry when he was diagnosed with cancer. That's, sadly a non-football injury. He didn't get that from playing football. Right. You're allowed to negotiate that instead of just outright releasing them. The Titans paid him like $600,000 the first year and $150,000 the next year, just as kind of a human courtesy to be like, hey, we want to keep your rights and our thoughts are with you as you fight through this, but we're going to pay you less than what we would have normally and even less than a minimum contract, but we're still going to let you use our facilities and any insurance that you need. So I kind of expect that. They could just cut him. They could just say, hey, tough luck. You jet skied and made that choice. I think that they will do some non-football injury list restructure where they pay him less money, but let him use the facilities, let him rehab, and probably keep his rights for 2024 because he was under contract through there. So I can't guarantee it, but if I had to guess right now, I'd expect something along those lines where they restructure it. They open up the 53-man roster spot. They pay him less money than they would, and I'll guess that they knock that cap hit down by over 2 million, a little over 2 million. I bet you they give him 500,000 as kind of a courtesy. And if you're him and you're his agent, if you just get released outright, nobody's going to sign you because you just tore your ACL. So their choice is like, hey, do I take some money from the Bills and get to use all their facilities and everything and their doctors and all the rehab, or do I go do this fully on my own? So, from a cold business standpoint, the Bills have all the leverage.
Do they have to go through an injury settlement to release them, though, Greg?
So the term injury settlement gets used a lot. It's normally with lower level players where they get put on injured reserve in the preseason or during the season. And in the player's opinion, it's, hey, I don't think I'm actually done for the year. Why are you putting me on injured reserve? I don't want to be done for the year. And the team says, well, we're not sure if you're going to come back. So they'll reach a settlement. Normally, injury settlement is, we think, like lawsuit settlement, where it's like an amount of money. Injury settlement, 99% of the time, is the amount of time they have to wait before they sign with another team. It's not always the case. And they may, so say we work out a deal here with Hines, it will be called an injury settlement because that's how it's negotiated. It's very rare that that's the case. It's normally something crazy like Quessenberry where he got cancer, or something very sad. Like, what was the one? There was the Bengals player where his daughter was going through cancer treatments, and it got a lot of attention at one point.
Yes. It was the offensive lineman. I forgot his name.
So
that's a good
whoever,
one.
if somebody thinks of that, that was another one where they kept.
Was it White? Maybe no, maybe it wasn't.
Whoever it was, and I'm sure somebody will think of it here in the comments or send it to us, or everyone on the internet will yell at us who it is.
Oh yeah.
That was another good one where they said, hey, we're going to release you, but we want to keep you with NFL insurance to help with your daughter and a little bit of money to help towards that. That was an injury settlement. Those are in the like 5% bucket. Most of the time it's your, I'm trying to think of a player that went back and forth a lot from Brandon Bryant's of the world, your Eli Ancow's of the world, where like, hey, you're kind of a fringe roster guy. We were going to put you on injured reserve, but you think you can come back in 6 weeks and want the right to go sign with another team. Our injury settlement is you can't sign with anyone for the next 6 weeks. If you get past 6 weeks, you sign with anybody else. And the player says, all right, deal, I'll take it. And then they get like 6 weeks worth of whatever it might have been, practice squad per week pay. And then they're a free agent after that. So that's normally what settlement is. If they do this, it would be called an injury settlement. But most of the time when we hear about that, it's time frame, not money.
Makes sense. Gotcha.
Yeah, and it's sad because it's not like he was doing this on his own, like just jet skiing and being reckless. It's just somebody ran into him.
Yeah.
So it's just a sticky situation and just bad luck,
Yeah, and I'm not even going to say what I was going to say. I want to believe that that's true.
Yeah.
I want to believe that that's the case.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of things that have been reported. He was just sitting there and somebody hit him with a jet ski. We don't know what happened. Either way, it was a very unfortunate incident, and I'm sure it was involved in that, and I'm sure he certainly was not. I'm confident he wasn't doing tricks and going off of jumps. Riding around on a jet ski is not inherently risky. They do put it in the contracts for a reason, but it's not like he was making some horrific decision. He wasn't, skydiving or something that was, just like very, very risky to do. On the field, I'm curious. I'll turn it around to you guys. I don't know what everyone was expecting. We've had a lot of debates with Aaron and I on our show of, was he going to be the carved out receiving role? Was he going to, and more of that than James Cook, or was James Cook going to get more of that and he was kind of the backup to it? Was he going to be the kick returner and punt returner, or was Deontay Hardy or Khalil Shakir going to do that? I feel bad saying I don't think it's quite as impactful on the field. I think he was a nice to have. I like the idea of him doing kick return and Deontay Hardy doing punt return. I like the option where, he could be a very good receiving back in addition to Cook or in the obvious pass roles and things like that. But I think they're reasonably well protected on the field, even though it's really sad in his impact, just as a person.
Right. And
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I said right, and I think this really kind of paves a way for probably Latavius Murray to really probably be a lock for that 53. Before maybe he was fringe guy, practice squatter, but at this point, like there's only really 2 running backs ahead of him right now. I know Evans. I'm not sure if we officially signed Darrington Evans, a former 3rd-round pick. It's looking like we're going to reach a deal with him from Appalachian State. Greg, I don't know if you have any thoughts on him or know anything about him.
So it's been reported that he is going to sign, and it's been reported by some pretty reputable people. So I think most of those tweets were right around or just after the 4 p.m. deadline. So I'm pretty confident he has not officially signed, but people like Aaron Wilson, who is a very reputable reporter, and even though I don't always love Pro Football Talk and Mike Florio, simple things like that, he's pretty reputable. If he's saying he's going to sign, I believe that's the case. It's actually been reported that both he and Jay Sternberger are going to sign because we had roster spots available on the 90-man roster. So Darrington Evans is a guy that at Cover One we actually like quite a bit coming out of Appalachian State. Ran a 4.41 at 203 pounds, had some genuine breakaway speed, had some kick return ability. He washed out of both Tennessee and Chicago, not because he wasn't good at football, but because he couldn't stay healthy. So I would say he's one of those players you got to be really careful with, because if you just go on YouTube and look up Darrington Evans highlights, you're going to think, oh my God, we just found Barry Sanders.
Right.
Because his highlight reel is sick. Like, it's really, really good. But he's had trouble staying on the field. So I would just tell people, one, he's on the smaller side. I think he's like 5'8", 203. So he's like a little bit smaller than Devin Singletary, but way more explosive and faster. But he didn't have any of the durability that Singletary had. He can't stay on the field. So he's a guy who will be like a preseason training camp darling. He's going to, I guarantee you, he's going to break a 70-yard touchdown in a preseason game, and people are going to lose their minds that, oh my God, it's Jamal Charles. We have Chris Johnson. He hasn't been able to stay on the field. So I'm excited because he's a guy that I like the potential of, but the Titans spent a 3rd-round pick on him and waived him after 2 years. The Bears, who need help, had him in there for a year and let him walk. He's a free agent right now, all the way through free agency. So I beg everyone to, with a healthy grain of salt, but I actually think him and Sternberger are a little bit better than the average day before camp signing. I actually think there's some potential there. Both of them have had trouble staying on the field, but when they play, they're good football players.
Gotcha.
Speaking of Sternberger, I know you're a big Sternberger guy. Do you think he could actually push Morris's job on the roster, Quentin Morris?
Just copy and paste everything I said about Evans. That dude has had so much trouble. He went to 3 different colleges. He then has played on like 4 different NFL teams because people see the film and they see how good he is and they bring him in, and then either he can't stay healthy or just he's a really annoying person. Like, it's weird that you would transfer 3 different times for college and then play for 4 different NFL teams, and now in the, I don't know if it was XFL or USFL, which one it was.
But he like
USFL. But he lit it up. Like, he's a really good football player, so I get why people keep giving him chances. I loved him coming out in the draft. I was so excited when he was coming out of Texas A&M, but he just can't stick anywhere. So I would welcome everyone, again, not to set their expectations high. That would be his ceiling. His ceiling would be, can I push Quentin Morris for that spot? Quentin Morris is a 4-phase special teamer. Quentin Morris played, I think, the 4th most special team snaps on the team last year. Him and Reggie Gilliam were 4th and 5th behind like Saran Neal, Taiwan Jones, and Tyler Medikevich. The next guys were Quentin Morris and Reggie Gilliam. So Quentin Morris is a really core special teamer and can play some of the fullback, some of the H-back, some of the move stuff. So in a perfect world, I need one guy to run a seam route and get open for me on 3rd and 8. Sternberger might be better, but everything else, Quentin Morris is better. So Ideally for me, Sternberger is we get him in-house. He's a priority practice squad guy. We get him a year of like, hey, can you stick here and kind of learn our system and everything? And then, especially as we build up more 12 personnel and more tight end usage, hey, is he a guy that gives us more of a genuine backup to Dawson Knox? Because Quentin Morris is way more Reggie Gilliam, Dalton Kincaid. Sternberger could be more of a Dawson Knox backup.
Okay.
Okay. While we have you on here for 14 more minutes, who's your training camp darling?
Ooh, I like that. So I actually put out a tweet earlier today. You know, the Shaquille O'Neal one where on TNT Inside the NBA, he was calling out Christian Wood, and then afterwards is like, I have to apologize. I wasn't familiar with your game. And people use that meme all the time. I posted that and said, this is going to be most of Bill's Mafia like a couple weeks into the season with Deontay Hardy. So as soon as the news broke this morning, everybody was messaging like, oh my God, who's going to be the returner? And I'm like, guys, we literally signed a guy who was an all-pro returner in New Orleans. He was really, really good. Like we're good here. We're okay. Now I get it. Some people thought that he wanted his chance to focus just on being a receiver instead of being like a gadget return guy. And I actually kind of believe that probably was the case in March, but then we drafted Dalton Kincaid in April, and that's for sure going to cut into how many 11 personnel snaps are there. So I actually think it's kind of a perfect world. I think Deontay Hardy is going to play the third most snaps for wide receivers. I think, I actually think we'll see more because I think our fourth and fifth guys of Sherfield and Shakir will play more than a normal fourth and fifth guy. But I think Hardy gets a little bit more than they do. Mm-hmm. And with Kincaid playing so much, it doesn't have to be that like, oh, do we have to choose between slot receiver or returner? I think he could be the primary returner and still play a decent amount of slot receiver because of how much Kincaid will play. So Hardy's my first one. And I would say, I wish I could explain why. Something in my gut tells me I think Dorian Williams is going to win the linebacker job.
Ooh, okay.
Mm-hmm. I think the betting, I'll guarantee that when we're there on Wednesday, I guarantee Terrell Dodson gets the first snap at linebacker. That's just how we operate. Yeah. He's the guy who stepped in for Edmonds last year. I guarantee he gets the first snap. Yeah. I think the betting favorite and the smart money would actually be on Terrell Bernard. I think he's got the most logic and the most boxes you can check to fill in. But there's something about some of the athletic skill set, the wingspan, and the way that he could read and react and make splash plays that I think he's going to be able to do something. So on offense, I'd say Deontay Hardy. On defense, keep an eye on Dorian Williams. I think he's going to be a name that could shoot up some of the, more attention. Like, not that fans don't pay attention later in the draft, but I don't think a ton of people walked away from the draft being like, oh, I love that Dorian Williams guy.
Right.
So a lot of more casual fans, I think, are going to be hearing about him for the first time, and I think he could surprise people.
I have a question. What camp battle are you looking forward to, Greg?
That linebacker is for sure one of them. Because I think you could make an argument 5 guys have a shot at it, and I think 3 realistically. I think Bernard, Williams, and Dodson at the top end. But you can tell me a story where AJ Klein has to be the guy because everybody else isn't ready. Or I think there's a non-zero chance that Balin Spector surprises people. I don't expect it, but I think it's actually possible. Mm-hmm. I'm annoyed that cornerback 2 is a battle, but I keep reminding myself it's not anything Kaiir Elam is doing wrong. It's the fact that we have 3 starting caliber corners, and that's a good thing, and depth is great. I want and I need in my heart that his athletic skill set and athletic upside makes it that he has to be the guy and that he runs away with that job. So I don't want that to be a battle, but I'm going to watch it carefully.
Definitely.
And then kind of similar at guard, I kind of expect more of a like Ramon Humber, Matt Milano situation. I expect Ryan Bates to be the starter, but I also think Osiris Torrance, like, I'm not a small man. For anybody who's met me in person, I'm not a small man. I have big hands. I got to interview Osiris Torrance in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, and I walked up and shook his hand. I have never felt that small in my entire life. He's like a refrigerator with hands. And like he went to shake my hand and his fingers went like halfway up my forearm.
Oh my
And
goodness.
he's one of the largest humans I've ever met in my life. And he's weirdly, like, I think he's one of those guys who used to be like 370, 380. So he's like a weirdly kind of like fit 330. Like he had to lose a lot of weight to get down to 330. He's just a massive human, and he is insanely powerful. There were some really, really good defensive tackles at the Senior Bowl, guys that, that got drafted really highly and did very, very well. And he was moving all of them out of there. He went from a lower level of school at Louisiana to the SEC, playing against your Jordan Davises and playing against all the SEC defensive tackles.
But he didn't give up a sack, right?
Didn't give up a sack. Like he is a road grader, and he's a guy that I just think Aaron Kromer is going to struggle to keep him off the field. And you guys remember 2 years ago where they loved Ryan Bates as kind of that super sub, being able to step in at all 5 positions. We gave Bobby Hart like 150 snaps last year in our jumbo set and 6th offensive line spot. I would love for that to be Ryan Bates. So I feel like it's going to be Dawkins, McGovern, Morse, Bates, Brown, but I won't be shocked if I could see Daquan Jones pulling Aaron Kromer aside after practice and being like, you got to put this boy on the field.
Yeah.
If he holds his own against Poona Ford and Daquan Jones and people like that, he might make it impossible to keep him off the field. I think it's an inevitability long-term, but I won't be shocked if they have to ease into it or wait for the first injury or whatever it is. But I won't be shocked if he just makes it too hard to keep him off the field, even during camp.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And the way that they operate, I wouldn't be surprised if they just waited a little bit, a couple games, just to get him
Get his feet
eased into it.
Yeah.
And so middle linebacker, we got to pick somebody, and I don't know if we have a starter or not, but somebody's got to play, and maybe you can hedge it a little bit with, okay, AJ Klein can play like obvious rundowns and short yardage, and hey, maybe we'll just play some dime and put Taylor Rapp in at nickel linebacker, basically, on obvious passing down. So we only need somebody for the middle 60%, but somebody has to play, right, wrong, or indifferent. Corner and guard, I feel really good about, because don't get me wrong, I'll be annoyed if Kyrie Elam doesn't win it, but we're going to be fine. Like, we're going to have good, adequate cornerback play no matter what. We could have high upside, really exciting cornerback play, but no matter what, we're going to be good. And I think for the first time in a long time, we could say the same thing about guard. Like, David Edwards started every single game through their Super Bowl season, including the playoffs and the Super Bowl in Los Angeles for Aaron Kromer. Ike Bacher started for us in the playoffs. There's a good chance those two are our 4th and 5th guard. And just having that kind of, that's not even including Nick Broker. We had Brandon Thorne, who's one of my favorite offensive line experts. He said, watch out for Nick Broker, that he is a fantastic run blocker and a guy who could make a Botger or a Bates or an Edwards a trade candidate at cut down day, because you got to keep Broker on the roster. And he also said that he will plant his flag that Osiris Torrance could make himself the best offensive lineman for the Buffalo Bills at some point. So see, the dog agrees with me too. So the idea that at least those two battles, I feel really good about. Like, I'm curious who wins, but I feel like the floor is really high at guard and corner. At guard, our ceiling might not be that high, maybe long-term with Torrance, but Torrance isn't going to be like an all-pro his rookie year. I think he could be good, but we're at least going to have good offensive line play, which makes me feel good at guard. At corner, the same thing. We're going to have good cornerback play. Maybe it's not elite, but it could be good, and with Elam, it could be elite. At linebacker, I hope we have a starter, but we might not. We might just have a dude who has to play because somebody has to play. I hope one of those guys ends up being really good, but I feel way more confident about it at guard and corner. At linebacker, I'm just going to hope.
Yep.
We have 5 more minutes left. So one last thing. How about the Gabe Davis extension? I guess we're flip-flopping back and forth whether we think the Bills are going to keep him or not. And the money has to be right. So what do you see about the money situation, the cap situation?
For the team?
Yeah, for Gabe Davis.
Oh, for Gabe. So with the Bills, obviously with Cover One, people see that we have a relationship with some players. Everybody knows that we have a good relationship with Jordan Poyer. Everybody knows we have a good relationship with a handful of players. Gabe is one of the players that we have a good relationship with. I can tell you with 100% certainty, they have exchanged information on a contract. They have discussed an extension. Like every other extension that everybody could assume, the Bills are hoping to get a pretty good deal. Gabe's weighing, hey, should I bet on myself and go into the season, is totally normal. I think that there's a very real possibility that between now and the start of the season, they could reach an extension. I also think it's one of those deals where if they don't, I don't think it's great for him to be here long term. Like if they don't get the extension before the season, he bets on himself. It could be kind of Tremaine Edmonds-ish. That like, hey, we tried, but he's betting on himself and he's going to price himself out of our market and we got to deal with it. Right. So, the question comes in, is he more of, this offseason we saw a lot of different guys get that kind of 3-year, $33 million deal, 4-year, $48 million deal, and that $11 or $12 million range. And some decent guys, some guys that, I think were thought of reasonably well in that were maybe not Devontae Parker, but whatever, the Patriots gave him a weird amount of money. Or is it more Cortland Sutton? Is it more Tyler Lockett? Is it more Mike Williams? Is it more those guys where Gabe sees himself as more of a top end wide receiver too and thinks, hey, I should be a $15 to $18 million guy. So it's really going to be, hey, where does that fall? Did they find a middle ground and all of a sudden we hear an announcement and it's $13.5 million and they literally cut it down the middle and say, hey, that we agree here. Because Gabe also has to weigh how much attention is Dalton Kincaid going to get? How big of a piece on the offense is Deontay Hardy going to be? Are we going to run the ball a little bit more with Murray and Harris and Cook and these new offensive linemen? So there's a lot of nuance in that discussion about what Gabe thinks he's capable of, but also what he thinks he's going to produce in this offense this season, what that does for his market. I think those numbers are fair. I can put together a case where Gabe's better than some of those other guys, than Christian Kirk or some guys that got some pretty big money. I also get why the team is looking at some of the other recent deals and saying like, hey, like these other guys only signed for that amount of money. Why would we extend further than that to go through those things? So, it's interesting, and I would expect it to get resolved, reasonably, but it's going to take a little bit to figure out here. I think that we could see it go into the season, and then hopefully we end up with like a Matt Milano situation where we kind of thought we were going to lose him, and then right before free agency opened, he was extended, and we go through there. But I would say if he signs before the season starts, it's probably going to be a pretty team-friendly deal, will be my assumption.
Greg, I know you only said you had 30 minutes, so I know we reached that, and thank you so much for your time.
I would say I could do one more if you guys want to do one more.
Okay. My most pressing question, but you mentioned Kincaid and what he can do in this offense. What are your thoughts on him this year?
I'm really intrigued by him. I think that, there was a lot of people in the media before the draft were very set that we had to get a receiver. So when it wasn't technically a receiver, a lot of them spent a ton of time arguing of like, well, if you guys are saying that he can play like a receiver, then we need to compare him to other, late first round wide receivers. I don't particularly care what the expectations are. He's a really special player. Like he's a lot of people that I trust, guys like Daniel Jeremiah, Danny Kelly is one of my favorite draft analysts. Daniel Jeremiah had him as his 9th overall player and his number 1 pass catcher ahead of Jackson Smith and Jigba. Danny Kelly had him as his 12th overall player. 11th was Jackson Smith and Jigba. So, like, he's a guy that when you watch him, he consistently gets open, and he has a weird level of athleticism that is hard to measure because he doesn't slow down when he cuts. Like, he has this weird ability to go into the route stem, and he can get really low and turn without slowing down. And it over and over again, when you have guys like Cole Beasley, he has that crazy like basketball stutter step where you see like the really violent foot in the ground and he cuts the other direction, and you can tell like that crazy agility is why he gets open. And you'll see some of that stuff with Deontay Hardy. Deontay Hardy is a like highlight reel jitterbug kind of guy. Dalton Kincaid isn't like that. Like, there's not this violent, quick separation. But over and over again, you watch like his cut-ups from college coming out of his break. He's like, hey, the guy's really close to him. And then he comes out of the break and, he's 3 yards away. And it doesn't look violent. It doesn't look like this crazy explosive thing. But as you get a feel for it, you realize, the other guy had to slow down and then re-accelerate. And Kincaid just kept going the same speed the whole time and never slowed down. And it's this really weird skill, and he's very good. People got confused again when you heard analysts comparing him to Cole Beasley because, Dalton Kincaid's a huge dude, 6'4", 245, 248. Cole Beasley's a tiny little guy. They both have this really innate ability to find the open spot in the zone, to read the feet of the defender, to say, he just stepped his outside foot there. That means he's leaning that way. That means if I go this way, he can't cut back fast enough and I'm going to be open. And that I love Isaiah McKenzie. I understand why everybody loved Isaiah McKenzie. He's a good example where just having pure raw athleticism doesn't always equate to that because that's just an innate skill that some super elite athletes have. And like when you see awesome basketball players, especially the ones great with the crossover, only half of it is their ability. The other half is they're amazing at reading the other player. And as soon as they get them to shift just the tiniest bit and they shift their weight from this hip to that hip, they're like, I got him. Boom. They're going that way. And that's what Kincaid has. He has that innate ability to find the open spot, not to decelerate out of his cuts. And I'll give Danny credit when he came on the show. He does a really good draft guide. It's awesome. It's on the Ringer for anybody who wants to check it out. They do a great job with it. His comp was, I'm not going to say the name, but know that I'm thinking it. And it's because he's like, I know if I say the name Travis Kelce, everybody's going to go crazy and everybody's going to go in. No one should be compared to, honestly, the best receiving tight end in NFL history. But the reason that comp is there is that's the stuff Kelce does. Where how does he keep getting open? Well, he's really good at it. He's really good at finding the soft spot where you're trying not to be. And that he's really good at using his body to box out and still being open even when he's covered. And he's good at getting in and out of his breaks efficiently so that you have that little bit of space to rifle the ball in there. There's a chance that Dalton Kincaid becomes that kind of safety blanket for Josh Allen. And I'm not predicting 120 catches and 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns like the crazy Travis Kelce seasons, but that skill set and that kind of ability of having a, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, Darren Waller, to one of those high-end tight ends, he could end up being one of those guys. And I think that I think in the red zone, we're going to see it early. And I think for some critical third downs, I think he's going to have a lot of trust that if Josh can't find Diggs is still obviously going to be the first read. Some of those critical downs, I feel like Kincaid's going to be that second read, and he's going to earn that trust pretty early. So I'm really excited about him. I see a lot of upside with him being on this roster. I'm really excited that they traded up for him, and I think it could pay dividends pretty quickly, and that people are going to be really excited we got this kid.
And we get to 12 personnel too, like we've always wanted to do.
Yeah, and so him on that side of it, obviously he's not like he's not Rob Gronkowski as a blocker, but he is a willing blocker, which is half the deal. Like Mike Gesicki literally is unwilling to block people. He won't even like get in the way. Right. So when you're running 12 personnel, the idea is, hey, if it's Taron Johnson across from him or Nickel Roby-Coleman or whoever, insert nickel cornerback X, Dalton Kincaid's still 6'4", 250, 248. Like he can still get in the way and wall you off. And if we're running that way, I'm going to put my money on the 6'4", 248 guy. So that's what it brings you. Is it not? He's not going to become some stonewall road grader as a blocker. It's just, hey, if you're tired of us working you in 12 personnel passing and then you stay in your nickel defense and we now, have Osiris Torrance and Spencer Brown blocking down and Dawson Knox blocking down and Dalton Kincaid can kind of wall you off and Mitch Morse is coming around the end and it's Latavius Murray with a head of steam, I think it's going to work out pretty good.
Really quick, I know we're running low on time, but Whittle has a little bit of a question for you. Does Kincaid help in the run game at all? And does the addition of Kincaid plus a productive season make Gabe Davis a bit more expandable? Expendable.
Yep.
I love Whittle. Whittle's great. I see him every time I open my phone. He's talking to somebody on Spaces. So I just talked a little bit about the run game part. I think he does. I think that he helps there because just in general, it's not Kincaid versus a top end blocking. He's not Kincaid versus Lee Smith. It's Kincaid versus Cole Beasley. It's Kincaid versus Khalil Shakir. Like, of course he's going to be a better blocker than a little wide receiver is. He's 4 or 5 inches taller and 40 pounds heavier. Of course he's going to be a better blocker. So I think that's just a baseline. It's better that way just because you're worried about him as a receiver. And then when you want to run, he's sufficient. He's adequate. And adequate for a tight end, not adequate as if as a wide receiver, so I let me flip this around the other way. Gabe Davis is renowned as a really good blocking wide receiver. Dalton Kincaid is probably an equal blocker to Gabe Davis. It's just that Gabe Davis is being compared to other wide receivers and Kincaid is a tight end. Kincaid is taller and heavier than Gabe. So it's just, he has more mass and he has more practice blocking than what Kincaid has had. Or than what Davis has had. So that's a good comparison. It's like, hey, we use Gabe because he's our best blocking wide receiver, although Trent Sherfield will probably give him a run for that now. He's our best blocking receiver. Kincaid is that level of blocker. It's just that at tight end, you also have the Lee Smiths and the guys who are basically a glorified offensive tackle playing tight end. He's not that. He's not that end of the scale. And ultimately, every once in a while, once in a generation, you get a Rob Gronkowski who's both. Normally, you don't get a Travis Kelce and a Lee Smith in the same body. There's not many Gronks floating out there. Now what does that do for Gabe? If Kincaid has a huge breakout season, like in the running for Rookie of the Year season, could it reassure the Bills that like, hey, maybe we don't need another $10 to $15 million receiver? We could probably recycle that in the draft because we got Diggs and this tight end guy plus Knox. We could probably just run it back and go draft somebody. So I won't say that there's zero effect, but in general, teams still want a good receiver. Teams still want more good receivers. Teams still want to invest in that and to add to it, even when you have a good tight end. I'm trying to think of some other scenarios, some of the top tight ends. When Darren Waller was in Oakland and things were normal and they traded for Devontae Adams and they also re-signed Hunter Renfrow and added, like, you still want to have more weapons. You still want 3+ weapons in every offense. So I would say Gabe Davis's negotiation is pretty singular. It's pretty much, hey, the team does value him. Absolutely. They are not already decided, hey, we're going to let him walk. We're good. They know that they want him back. it's all what number is it at, and does Gabe like Tremaine Edmonds? Does he play himself out of just what our budget is? That hey, we like you. That they wanted Tremaine Edmonds back. Of course, they would have loved to have Tremaine Edmonds back. They just couldn't afford it. So there's a number where if Gabe Davis blows up, and instead of Dalton Kincaid having a potential rookie of the year type season, Gabe Davis blows up and has an amazing season, we probably can't afford him. We probably can't afford to do an $18 million. If he has like a deal where all of a sudden he's next year's Christian Kirk, where some team decides, hey, this is our guy to be able to get ourselves a hidden wide receiver one that could unlock what we want to do, and somebody, Atlanta throws a boatload of money at him, we're probably gonna have to let him walk, and we'll get a 3rd round comp pick, and we'll move on and have to just recycle that again. I kind of hope they figure it out and keep him because I like Gabe, but unfortunately, businesses, football is a business, and that could end up not being the case.
Yeah,
but I appreciate it very, very much, guys. I really appreciate everything you guys are building here and trying to get set up. So I look forward to seeing more successful ones, and I hope Paul can get to bed early. I think it's a school night. So we'll talk to you guys soon here. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you, Greg.
All right, Greg. Thank you again. I'll see you at camp. All right. Again, that's Greg Tompsett from Cover One. He has a show. I believe it's every Friday, right, Tommy? You guys' a show still Friday nights.
That's Friday.
So we Whittle, I see your comment about Hines. We did talk Hines at the beginning, so go back and watch the live stream on YouTube or on Twitter just to hear Greg's thoughts on Hines. We'll definitely post clips of it, but if you want to hear like the full discussion of it, but man, that was some great stuff from Greg. And the one thing I'll take away from it was the Gabe contract extension. I know Sal's mentioned it, but Greg kind of, I think, almost broke the news that we've had talks about it. So I mean, we know now for sure that the team is interested in him. Now I know we asked Greg about it, but we got training camp starting Wednesday, and I still wanted to kind of do some superlatives, so I figured
did we lose Ben?
All right, so we wanted to do some superlatives.
You still got me?
Yeah, we got you.
All right, yeah. So we're gonna do some superlatives, kind of similar to Greg. Tommy, we'll start with you. We're going to do sleepers for training camp. So go ahead and kick us off. Who is your sleeper for camp this year?
My sleeper for camp, you know what? I'm going to say Kyer Elam. I think he's gonna show out. I think he's gonna win that cornerback 2 competition. I'm really looking forward to see what he can do, and I think he's willing to do better, and I think he's gonna go out there and show why the Bills drafted him when they did last year in the 1st round.
Yeah, he's definitely got a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
This past off season, there were pictures of him working out on his own and in training. So I think that he's gonna definitely push for that CB2 spot. He's got a lot to prove.
Yep, I'm liking that pick. I pick for sleeper. So. Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah.
All right, so Jenna, you want to give your sleeper now?
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go Justin Shorter.
Ooh, I like that.
We need that. Was it gonna be wide receiver 6 or wide receiver 7? It's wide receiver 6.
All right.
He's gonna probably gonna have a big role on special teams if he makes the roster. And I'm gonna assume he's gonna make the roster because we spent a 5th round draft pick on him.
Right.
That wide receiver 6. Is he gonna take the spot over Jalen Wayne and Desmond Patman?
Right.
Yep.
I think they see a lot of potential in him. He's huge. He's ripped, and he's got a lot of speed. He's like a Gabe Davis 2.0, but with better hands. And love you, Gabe. But I think he's gonna want to push that wide receiver 6 spot and get on the field, build some chemistry with Josh Allen.
Yep.
I think Jalen. That's Justin Shorter. There's his name. I think he can get that spot. But I mean, there's obviously, like you said, Jalen Wade is I think hunting for that playoffs, not playoff spot, but roster spot.
Playoff.
I I think Jalen Wayne definitely. I think will give Justin Shorter a heck of a competition.
Yep.
There, I think it's gonna. I think it's probably gonna come down to preseason games for both of them. Like who can perform better in game time in the game and can make some big catches when it matters the most. I would expect Shorter to win that job, and probably Wayne be in the practice squad, kind of be like that, kind of like the Latavius Murray type of role when he was on the practice squad. If we need him, he would be there, and he'd be a good guy to reach into your practice squad and fit in if an injury does occur. So I think Justin Shorter is a good sleeper, but my sleeper for this upcoming training camp, he probably doesn't make the roster, but I think he could make the roster, is Alex Austin, the 7th round pick out of Oregon State.
Okay.
I mean, I've been ever since he was drafted, I was like, this kid has some potential to make this roster. I think again probably comes down to what he looks like in camp and can he do his drills and preseason games. But I think if he can have a successful training camp, so a few weeks of training camp, and can perform well in the first 2 preseason games, I think Sean McDermott has a tough time not keeping him off the roster, because I think he can make the roster.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely think he could push Cam Lewis for that cornerback 6 role. So I'm really excited to see what he has, and he could be the Jordan Poyer-esque player at cornerback. You know, and I'm in reference to his Oregon State
connection, right?
Connection, yeah.
Yep.
So I'm really excited to see what he has.
Yeah.
My sleeper is going to be Cameron Dantzler from Minnesota. I know a lot of people have talked about him, not a lot, but some people have mentioned him before, and I think he's got some intriguing tools. Big, tall, rangy corner, kind of different than some of the other corners we got. Maybe more like an Elam, but I mean, probably more of a man corner. But if you want to play man, I mean, he's better at man. So if he's something, I think that also could potentially push Jackson off the roster in terms of a trade, potentially. I mean, I know we still have Austin, but I like what Dantzler brings to the table. He struggled a little bit in Minnesota, but they changed defenses his second year, and then I believe he had an injury, or his confidence. Something happened with his confidence, and once they changed defensive schemes under O'Connell, he just wasn't a good fit, and he kind of was just an odd man out. Now that they have Flores, they cut him. He couldn't stick in Washington, so I think he's got potential. I mean, you obviously, with any sleeper besides Elam, I mean, I think most of these guys, they're not locks to be contributors. I mean, I'd see probably Austin and Shorter have better chances to make the roster. But, I mean, I think if anyone could make the roster who we're really not talking about, I think it actually could be Cam Dantzler.
Ooh, I like that.
All right, Whittle just with an interesting nugget. Cam Dantzler could play safety. I like that. And I wonder if Benford's still. I know he's looked good at corner. I mean, I wonder if is there some type of hybrid position where he plays like some safety, some corner, mostly corner. I don't know. Like how many defensive? I mean, we have a ton of defensive backs.
We're stacked.
Yeah.
I mean, do y'all think that maybe Benford could be another trade candidate?
I doubt Benford's a trade candidate. I know some people have stupidly said Elam could be, but there's no way they trade Elam. I don't think they trade Benford just because of how good he's been, though. No, I don't think they'll trade Benford.
Okay.
No, that would be that would be a dumb trade if they would decide to trade Benford.
Yeah. And I think what's his name? Alex Austin would be what, CB7 actually. Now that I think about it, we got Trey, Elam, Benford, Dane. Dane's an interesting one too. Do they want to part ways with Dane? Make him a trade candidate?
He's a big trade candidate.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, maybe if Alex Austin pushes his buttons, pushes them to the limit, maybe Dane is that trade candidate. But
I mean, Dane's a proven starting corner in the league, which
it's going to take a lot.
There's only like a certain number of those. So if a team has an injury or they just are looking, they're not happy with their depth, they still need a starting corner. I mean, I would say he's a great trade candidate for a team.
Right.
Yeah.
I would agree.
And I kind of have a cry for help right now. I want to see those red helmets really, really bad. So I just thought I'd bring this up. Isn't it pretty? Beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, I think we'll see them just because of the throwback tee, and every team is releasing them. And like last year, they said they couldn't release them, and if they were to come, it would be this year. Now I think we got one more week to register them with like an alternate uniform. So the clock's ticking, but I think Philly still's yet to reveal theirs. Denver hasn't revealed theirs yet. The Jets just did today, which we play week 1, and they are wearing theirs week 1. So could we see a throwback game week 1?
Classic Monday Night Football.
I would like that. I mean, we opened, not to bring up a sore subject, but 2009 was a Tommy. We opened in our throwbacks in New England. We should have beat the Patriots. That was the game where Schobel had the pick 6, and was it Sean Nelson had that incredible leap to the end zone that like NFL films just kept like showing over and over again in all those ads. And that was like his only highlight of his career, ironically. But
if it wasn't for McKelvin, we would have won that game.
Yeah, there's other. I mean,
yeah.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda. There's a lot of stuff that's gone wrong, but I'm just, bringing back, a night we wore throwbacks open the year. So I would be an advocate for that.
I would.
And
definitely.
I went on the team store. If you click on throwbacks, none of the like the white AFL ones, like the one I got behind me. I got Mario Williams. Like you can't get. I mean, you can go on NFL Shop and order those, but the Bills store, they removed those, and those have been available. We didn't wear those last year, so were they retired? It'd be cool to see the red helmets. I mean, I'm more like indifferent, honestly. Like I prefer the white, but I mean, it would be nice to see like a game or two to wear like the 90s uniforms.
I'm thinking we hear something by tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or Wednesday.
I'm going to camp Wednesday. I would love it if we make some kind of announcement Wednesday, and then they have the jerseys up at the team store available. But I don't know if.
Yeah.
I mean, you see all the the Seahawks, the Oilers jersey, the throwback Tennessee Oilers, which I still don't get why they're wearing Houston's jersey, but I know it's the same franchise, but it's still like if the Ravens were to wear Browns gear, but either way. But you see the Seahawks and the Tennessee throwbacks available in the wild already pretty quickly after their announcement, so maybe we get like a review video tomorrow morning, maybe tomorrow night, and then Wednesday, when camp opens, we see those bad boys on the hangers. That would be awesome. But other than that, you guys have anything else about camp you're looking forward to? I know we've pretty much gone through it as almost as much as possible. Greg really provided some great insight.
I'm just looking forward to being there for my first time ever. Like Thursday, going 2 days, Thursday and Friday. I think it's going to be a great experience. Getting to see the players up and close, and just having a good time, meeting people, and having a great time out there.
Widow wants some autographs. I gotta sign some autographs for him.
Yeah, you'll need that once Undercovers becomes pretty widespread amongst Bill's Mafia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get some maybe at the stadium or something.
Any players you guys want autographs from?
Oh,
That you'll at least try.
If I get autographs, that'll be cool. I mean, I'm sure I'm going opening day. It's going to be mobbed. I got autographs. Like, I used to be huge into autographs when I was younger. Like, it'll be cool to get them. Like, if I were to get them, it would be like maybe like Kincaid, Knox, Miller, Diggs, Josh. Like, I don't really care. No offense to I don't know, Tyler Medikevich, but I don't really care to get Tyler Medikevich's autograph or something like that.
I mean, I got Case Keenum's autograph last year.
Yeah, that's if I were to get.
He was nice enough to do it.
I think
I got Isaiah McKenzie.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally had a football, which is actually I still have it, but that football right there, I got it in 2009. I literally just every player, no matter what, signed it. So I got I know Mormon's on there for sure. Fitzpatrick is on there. I think Fred Jackson, so many Bills players, Lindell, I know they're all old players, but I don't know if I ever the one player though I really wish I got that I never got was Stevie. I wish I was able to get him, but I know Stevie's actually huge in the Bills Buffalo community. So I mean I'm sure maybe I'll meet up with Stevie and finally get his autograph someday. That'd be cool. But yeah, I mean, I'm not too interested in autographs. I mean, because I'm sure it's going to be mobbed when I'm there.
If I were to get one, it would probably be DeMar Hamlin. I would love to just get
that. Would be awesome.
That would be cool.
Yeah, I could
be like a cool signature to have and just to have it and own it. Like it just be awesome. After what he's been through with the community and everything.
100%.
Yeah, and it was really cool that he went back to Cincinnati and called it his third home.
That was really cool.
That is cool.
I would love to get DeMar Hamlin on our podcast if we could.
I don't think unless we become like a Barstool, we're a little too small for Hamlin. Hamlin went Hollywood after that thing, probably $20,000 guest appearance fee.
Yeah. But it would be amazing.
I think our bank accounts can hold that right now, right?
I would.
Oh yeah, I think if we fundraise, we might be able to get it.
Yeah. Sell the house, sell the car.
They would do it for us. I think they would raise it for us to get them on.
Is there anything else you guys would like to talk about? I feel like we covered everything that we wanted to.
Yeah, everything we need to cover.
I guess maybe one thing we didn't touch on with Greg, it was how Sean McDermott might run this defense.
Yeah.
Ben, you're going to training camp. Jenna,
I will.
I'll
kind of be the man on the scene. I'm gonna take videos, pictures. I'll make sure when they go out there, they line up. I'm not going to be the first one, but I'll try to be among the first people to say who's at, each positions.
Right.
Break it down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see if Taylor Rapp's out there.
Yep. And then I'll say who's, standouts, duds, or whatever. I'm excited. Next week we could definitely have a little bit of a first week of camp review. I know Tommy, you're probably traveling back, so I don't know. Maybe we could even do something Monday, record it, and just post it, something like that. I don't know. Okay. We might be able to do it. I don't know if you can do a tape delay on StreamYard, tape it and then have it it's live. I don't know. We could just record it and post it even, or just wait till you get back and then delay it or whatever. But we'll definitely have some type of we definitely should, next week after we're all at camp, give our thoughts,
what we
go through what stood out, whatever, just break it down.
Yeah.
Because it's good. I love all the reporters and they do great work. Don't get me wrong, but it's a little different when, if you're thinking about a specific player you want to know about, maybe, they haven't been reported on or just talked about, you can kind of go and if you have a certain player you're watching for, you can kind of see how they're doing and, pick them out. So I like training camp because you kind of get to, get up close and see how these players are.
Yeah. Or if you guys do
Yeah.
a live next week, I'll tune in on my way home. If y'all
Facts.
like. So definitely tune into that.
For sure.
We'll be good. But I got nothing else tonight. If y'all have anything, I don't know, we all talk about. But I think we covered it.
I think we covered everything. I mean,
pretty
again,
set.
thanks to Greg for coming on. I
Yeah.
mean, that was
Definitely.
awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
That was awesome. So shout out to Greg and Cover One,
Yep.
and Tommy, Jenna, Paul. Thank you guys as always, and to the viewers, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back next week, same time, and tune in on Thursday for the Basement Podcast with Matt and Pat, and that is at 7:30 still.
I think they have a special guest as well coming on.
Yeah, they got a guest this weekend, so you're gonna want to check it out. Is Dan Mitchell this weekend or after?
This weekend. This
Okay.
Thursday,
So
Mitchell
Dan
is on.
Mitchell is on this weekend, so that's a good guest.
Tune into that.
All right. Have a good night.